So, I have to admit, when I first heard about the massive protests in Greece over the Macedonian Name Dispute, I was a bit baffled. Why do names spark such intense reactions enough to fill city squares with thousands of people?
It's pretty wild, isn't it? What really struck me is that names, especially those tied to regions or nations, become more than just words. They're loaded with history, identity, even emotion, like a national flag. For many Greeks, Macedonia isn't just a place. It's part of their heritage, tied to myths, legends, and an almost sacred sense of belonging.
That makes sense. It's a bit like how people react to changing a sports team's name or emblem, but on a much bigger, more political scale. I mean, this was all happening while Greece was facing economic crisis, right?
Exactly, and that's the wild part. Even as salaries were slashed and livelihoods threatened, the name dispute caught fire. It's as if the symbolic threat losing the name felt more urgent than economic hardship. And politicians noticed, using the dispute to rally support or attack rivals.
Funny how what looks like a minor wording issue from the outside can actually be the tip of an iceberg. That actually reminds me of how these symbolic battles sometimes get used for bigger political games.
That's a great way to put it. In Greece, parties would use the Macedonian name dispute almost as a litmus test, questioning each other's patriotism and rallying the public with powerful slogans. The dispute even revived far-right movements and put pressure on governments to take hardline stances.
So it's less about geography and more about identity politics, like who gets to claim a certain story, or even a sense of victimhood.
Absolutely, and it's not unique to Greece. Around the world, name disputes like over the Persian Gulf or the Kuril Islands become stand-ins for much deeper struggles over legitimacy or national pride. Sometimes, the territory itself isn't even disputed, just the symbolism wrapped up in the name.
That's fascinating. I never realized a simple name could be weaponized like that, turning into a zero-sum game where one side's win feels like another's existential loss.
And it gets even trickier when the media steps in, amplifying these fears, and sometimes even fueling intolerance or mob reactions. The Macedonian case had moments where disagreement meant being labeled a traitor. Democracy itself took a hit.
I've noticed that once these disputes catch fire, people cling to a version of reality that's almost impossible to question. Is that what's meant by hyperreality?
Yes, totally. It's like when the narrative becomes so dominant, it replaces the actual facts. People start seeing the improved story, the mythic version, as the only truth. In the Macedonian name dispute, Greeks perceived sharing the name as losing an exclusive piece of their identity, even if, in practice, nothing changed on the ground.
So, the dispute runs less on logic and more on emotion and perceived threats. That must make compromise almost impossible.
You hit the nail on the head. Once these symbolic meanings take over, any attempt at dialogue gets drowned out by the need to defend the one true reality. Sometimes, politicians or the media exploit this using hyperreal narratives to shore up their own power or distract from tough issues.
Kind of makes you wonder how societies can break out of that cycle, especially when the dispute isn't really about borders, but about imagination and belonging.
That's the big question, isn't it? After all the drama, Greece and North Macedonia did reach the Prespes Agreement, officially recognizing North Macedonia. But even then, it didn't magically heal the divisions. For many, it felt like a loss that threatened the nation itself.
It's almost bittersweet. The agreement was hailed as historic by the EU and opened doors for North Macedonia internationally, but the debate over identity lingers on. Do you think there's a way for democracies to handle these disputes better?
Maybe the answer lies in more open discussion, acknowledging the deep emotional stakes, but also encouraging diverse viewpoints. The book suggests democracies should protect space for peaceful disagreement and challenge those dominant exclusionary narratives. Otherwise, there's a real risk of backsliding toward intolerance and even despotism.
That resonates, especially in a world so polarized by identity. I guess it's a reminder that even something as simple as a name can trigger big questions about who we are and how we live together.
Exactly. And maybe if we start to see names as shared stories rather than battlegrounds, we'd move a little closer to more inclusive societies. It's tough, but the first step is understanding why these disputes matter so much.